The great hall of the Galactic Concord stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Its walls were made of living crystal that had been growing for 10,000 years. The crystal remembered everything. Every word spoken in this chamber lived forever in its structure. Every decision, every treaty, every declaration of war and peace existed somewhere in those glowing walls. Today, 12 species had gathered for the monthly assembly. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen, others survived on methane or pure radiation. A few existed as pure energy, their forms flickering like flames in specially designed containment fields. At the center of it all sat the Council of Elders. These were not simply old politicians or experienced diplomats. The elders were ancient beyond measure. The youngest among them had lived for 6,000 years. The oldest, a crystalline being known simply as the Arbiter, claimed to remember the formation of the Concord itself. The Arbiter rarely spoke. When he did, the galaxy listened. But today, the assembly focused on more routine matters. Trade disputes between the Morvani and the Stellar Collective. A minor border conflict in the Outer Rim. The usual business of keeping 12 species from destroying each other. Then the doors opened, and High Commander Theron Vass of the Velcari Empire strode into the chamber. The Velcari were the newest members of the Concord, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 800 years ago. In galactic terms, they were children. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in thick scales of deep purple and black. Their eyes glowed with an inner fire that reflected their aggressive nature. Theron was considered young even by Velcari standards. He had risen to power through a combination of military genius and political cunning. Many on the council distrusted him, but none could deny his effectiveness. He walked to the center of the chamber and waited for recognition. The current speaker, a gas giant-dwelling creature called Mothral, acknowledged him with a wave of its tentacles. High Commander Theron, you have requested emergency time before this assembly. State your purpose. Theron's voice boomed through the hall. I bring news of opportunity. As you know, the humans have begun expanding their trade routes near Velcari border space. A ripple of unease passed through the assembly. Several of the elders shifted in their seats. The Arbiter's crystalline form flickered with internal light. Theron continued, seemingly unaware of the reaction. These humans possess something valuable, a rare isotope called Helion-7. It exists only in their territory. This substance can improve our FTL drives by 300%. Imagine what we could achieve with such technology. What exactly are you proposing? Mothral asked carefully. I am proposing that we open formal negotiations with the humans, perhaps establish a trade agreement. Their technology is primitive, their military weak. They would benefit greatly from our protection and guidance. The chamber fell silent. It was not the silence of consideration. It was the silence of fear. Finally, an elder spoke. Her name was Vesizara, and she had been old when the Velcari were still building their first cities. Her body was wrapped in flowing robes that hid whatever form lay beneath. High Commander, she said, her voice like wind through dead leaves. You speak of the humans. Are you aware of Directive 7? Theron's scales rippled with annoyance. I am aware of it. I find it absurd. Another ripple of unease. This time, it bordered on panic. Directive 7 clearly states, Vesara continued, that humanity is to be left undisturbed. No contact, no provocation, no exceptions. This directive is the foundation of Concord law. It supersedes all other considerations. And I am asking why, Theron replied. I have studied the humans. They occupy perhaps 40 star systems. Their ships are slow and poorly armed. Their lifespans are laughably short. They pose no threat to anyone. You have studied them, Vesara said. But you do not understand them. Then explain it to me. Theron spread his arms wide. I see a species that barely qualifies as spacefaring. Why should the mighty Galactic Concord fear such creatures? For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, the Arbiter rose from his seat. The entire assembly held its breath. The Arbiter had not spoken in open session for over a century. His crystalline body towered over even the Velcari, ancient beyond comprehension, radiating power that made the air itself tremble. Young Commander, the Arbiter said. His voice was like grinding stone, deep and resonant. I will tell you why we fear the humans. I will tell you because you must understand. Because your ignorance could doom us all. Theron tried to maintain his confident posture, but even he could not entirely hide his unease in the Arbiter's presence. 3,000 years ago, the Arbiter began. A species called the HFY dominated this region of the galaxy. They were insectoid beings, vast in number, unified in purpose. Their empire spanned 200 star systems. They feared nothing and no one. The Arbiter paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the assembly. The HFY discovered humanity when humans were just beginning to explore beyond their home world. They saw a soft, fragile species. Weak, divided, easy prey. The HFY attacked human colony worlds. They burned cities. They slaughtered millions. They believed they were simply culling a lesser species before it could become a nuisance. Theron shifted uncomfortably. I have never heard of the HFY. No, the Arbiter said. You have not. Because the HFY no longer exist. Humanity erased them from the universe so completely that most species have forgotten they ever lived. The silence that followed was absolute. The humans did not respond to the attacks immediately. The Arbiter continued. This confused the HFY. They expected either surrender or wild, disorganized resistance. Instead, they received nothing. Silence. For nearly 30 years, the humans appeared to simply accept their fate. But they were not accepting anything. They were learning, adapting. The humans captured HFY ships and took them apart piece by piece. They studied HFY biology. They mapped every HFY world, every trade route, every military installation. They did this quietly, patiently, with a dedication that bordered on obsession. The Arbiter's form flickered with ancient memories. And then, when they were ready, they struck. The humans did not attack a single world. They attacked all of them. Simultaneously, in a single day, they hit 47 star systems across HFY space. They used weapons no one had ever seen before. Some were technological, others were biological. Several defied understanding entirely. The HFY tried to respond, but their communications were already compromised. Their fleets were destroyed before they could organize. Their leaders were assassinated in their own chambers by humans who had infiltrated their society years before. Within 1 year, the HFY empire was gone. Not conquered, not subjugated, gone. The humans did not want territory. They did not want resources. They wanted extinction. And they achieved it. Theron's scales had gone pale. How many HFY were there? 14 trillion, the Arbiter said. 14 trillion sentient beings. Erased from existence because they made the mistake of harming humanity. That is impossible. Theron whispered. No species could accomplish such a thing, and yet they did. I watched it happen, Commander. I watched worlds burn. I watched a civilization that had existed for 10,000 years vanish in less than one. And when it was over, the humans simply returned to their territory and resumed their lives as if nothing had happened. The Arbiter moved closer to Theron, his crystalline form casting strange shadows across the floor. We formed the Conquered in the aftermath of that war, not to unite against external threats, not to promote trade or peace. We formed the Conquered for one reason, and one reason only, to ensure that no species would ever provoke the humans again. Directive 7 is not a law, Commander. It is a survival imperative. The humans are not weak. They are sleeping. And we have spent 3,000 years making absolutely certain that nothing disturbs their slumber. Theron was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, some of his confidence had returned. With respect, Arbiter, that was 3,000 years ago. Times change. Species evolve. Perhaps the humans have become soft in their isolation. Several elders made sounds of distress. Vesisara shook her head slowly. The Arbiter simply stared at Theron. You believe the ancient warnings are exaggeration. You believe we are frightened old fools clinging to outdated fears. I believe, Theron said carefully, that the Concord should not make policy based on events from before most of our species achieved spaceflight. Then let me give you more recent evidence. The Arbiter raised one crystalline limb, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. 17 years ago, a Velkari merchant vessel strayed into human space. A simple navigation error. The humans detected the vessel immediately. The display showed a small freighter drifting near a human border station. Within minutes, the vessel was surrounded by human warships, ships that appeared from nowhere, as if they had been waiting. The Valkyrie captain transmitted apologies, explaining the error. The humans escorted the vessel back to the border without incident. That seems reasonable, Theron said. They showed restraint. They showed restraint because there was no provocation. The Arbiter's voice hardened. But consider this, the moment that vessel entered human space, every system on board was infiltrated by human software. We only discovered this years later. That software mapped every piece of Valkyrie technology, every communication protocol, every security system. It then transmitted all of this data back to human space and erased itself without a trace. A single brief encounter, Commander. And the humans learned more about your civilization than you know about yourselves. They did not attack because there was no reason to attack, but they prepared for the possibility. They are always preparing. Theron said nothing. The humans do not seek conflict, the Arbiter continued. They have no interest in conquest or expansion. They want only to live in peace. But they are incapable of forgetting an injury. They are incapable of forgiving an attack. And they are incapable of fighting a limited war. If you provoke them, Commander, they will not simply defeat you. They will destroy everything you are. Your military, your economy, your culture, your species. They will not stop until there is nothing left. And the rest of the galaxy will stand by and watch. Because we know that any attempt to help you would simply add our names to their list. The Arbiter returned to his seat, his ancient form settling back into stillness. That is why Directive 7 exists. That is why we avoid humanity. Not because they are weak. Because they are the single most dangerous species this galaxy has ever produced. And they do not know it. They do not see themselves as conquerors or destroyers. They see themselves as ordinary beings, living ordinary lives. But when they are threatened, when their people are harmed, something awakens in them. Something cold and patient and utterly without mercy. The Kethrai saw it. The Kethrai did not survive to warn others. We are that warning now, Commander. Heed it. The assembly waited for Theron's response. The High Commander stood in the center of the chamber, his scales shifting through colors that indicated deep thought. Finally, he bowed his head. I hear the wisdom of the elders. I will consider these words carefully. He turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. The assembly breathed a collective sigh of relief. Mothral prepared to move on to the next item of business, but the Arbiter remained still, his crystalline eyes fixed on the door through which Theron had departed. He did not believe us, Vesara said quietly. No, the Arbiter agreed. He did not. What will he do? The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with resignation. He will do what the young and ambitious always do. He will test the boundaries. He will push against the limits. He will convince himself that the old warnings are exaggeration and superstition. And then we will discover whether 3,000 years has been long enough for the humans to forget what they are capable of. The crystal walls of the chamber pulsed with ancient light. Somewhere in their structure, a new memory was forming. A memory of warning ignored. And far across the galaxy, on the border between Valkyrie space and human territory, 3 human merchant vessels went about their business, unaware that their fate had just been decided in a chamber of living crystal. They would learn soon enough. Everyone would. The capture was almost embarrassingly easy. 3 human merchant vessels drifted through the empty space near the Valkyrie border, their cargo holds full of Helion-7 isotopes bound for distant markets. They flew no weapons. They carried no military escort. They were simply traders, doing what traders had done since the beginning of civilization. High Commander Theron watched from the bridge of his flagship as 12 Valkyrie warships surrounded the tiny human convoy. Signal them, he ordered. Tell them they are in violation of Valkyrie territorial law. They are to power down their engines and prepare for boarding. The communications officer hesitated. Sir, our records show they are well within neutral space. There is no violation. Then our records are wrong, Theron said calmly. Update them. The officer swallowed hard and transmitted the message. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a response came through, audio only. The voice was female, calm, and completely unafraid. Valkyrie vessels, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the merchant ship Horizon's Edge. We are operating in neutral space under conquered trade agreements. Please explain the nature of this contact. Theron smiled. Tell her that new intelligence suggests this region has been reclassified as Valkyrie sovereign territory. Her vessels are trespassing. They will be taken into custody pending investigation. Another hesitation from the communications officer. Another hard swallow. Another transmission. Captain Vasquez's response came quickly. We do not recognize any reclassification. We request confirmation from Concord authorities. Tell her, Theron said, his voice hardening, that Concord authorities are not relevant here. She will comply, or her vessels will be destroyed. The communications officer transmitted the message. This time, the pause was longer. Then Captain Vasquez spoke again. Her voice had not changed, still calm, still unafraid, but something in her tone made even Theron's scales prickle with unease. Understood, Velkari Commander. We will comply. Please note that this action has been recorded and transmitted to human space. The message will arrive in approximately 4 hours. Theron waved dismissively. Let them send their messages. By the time anyone responds, this matter will be settled. The boarding was quick and efficient. Velkari soldiers moved through the 3 merchant vessels, securing the crew and cataloging the cargo. 47 humans in total were taken into custody, including Captain Vasquez and her senior officers. They did not resist. They did not argue. They simply allowed themselves to be led to detention cells aboard the Velkari flagship, their expressions unreadable. Theron watched the proceedings from his command chair, satisfaction spreading through his chest. This was too easy. The elders were fools, terrified of shadows and ancient history. The humans were nothing special. As the fleet prepared to return to Velkari space, his second-in-command approached. High Commander, the human captain is requesting to speak with you. Theron considered refusing, but curiosity won out. Bring her to the observation deck. I will hear what she has to say. Captain Elena Vasquez was shorter than Theron had expected. Humans were small creatures, fragile and soft. This one was middle-aged by human standards, her dark hair streaked with gray, her face weathered by years of space travel. She walked with a slight limp, the result of some old injury, yet something about her made Theron uncomfortable. Perhaps it was her eyes. They were brown, warm, almost kind. But behind that warmth was something else, something that measured and calculated and filed information away for future use. High Commander Theron Vas, she said, her Velkari pronunciation surprisingly good. I know who you are. I am flattered. You should not be. She moved to the observation window, gazing out at the stars. I know your military record. I know your political ambitions. I know the names of your family members and the locations of your private residences. I know the access codes to your personal communication channels. Theron's scales shifted to a defensive pattern. You are bluffing. Perhaps. She turned to face him. Or perhaps you underestimate how carefully we watch those who might become threats. Threats? Theron laughed. Your people occupy 40 star systems. The Velkari Empire commands 300. You are not in a position to threaten anyone. We are not threatening you, Commander. We have never threatened you. We have asked only to be left alone. Her voice remained calm, almost gentle. You are the one who has taken aggressive action. You are the one who has captured our vessels and imprisoned our people. The question now is what happens next. What happens next is that you will be taken to Velkari Prime. Your cargo will be impounded. You and your crew will be held until your government agrees to renegotiate the terms of human access to this region of space. I see. She nodded slowly, as if considering his words carefully. And if our government refuses, then you will remain our guests indefinitely. Elena Vasquez smiled. It was a small smile, almost sad. Commander, may I share an observation? Theron gestured for her to continue. In your culture, when a conflict arises, you respond immediately. You escalate quickly, demonstrate strength, force your opponent to back down. This approach has worked well for you within the Concord, where other species fear your military power. We do what is necessary. Yes, and you expect us to do the same. You expect us to send angry transmissions. You expect us to dispatch whatever small fleet we possess. You expect us to huff and puff and eventually accept terms that favor you. She moved closer to him. Despite her small size, despite her captivity, despite everything, she showed no fear. But that is not what will happen. What will happen is nothing. Theron's scales rippled with confusion. Nothing? Nothing. For a while at least. Days, weeks, perhaps months. You will hear no response from human space. No demands, no threats. No fleet mobilization. Silence. Then your government is even weaker than I thought. No. Commander. Her smile faded. Our government is not weak. Our government is patient. And right now, somewhere in human space, people are being awakened from their beds, files are being opened, plans are being made. Everything that can be known about the Velkari Empire is being gathered and analyzed. We are not the Kethrai. We have no intention of harming your people. The Kethrai said the same thing, Commander. Right up until they started killing humans. They thought they could control the situation. They thought they could take what they wanted without consequence. They were wrong. Theron stepped closer, using his height to tower over her. Are you threatening me? No. I am warning you. There is a difference. She looked up at him without flinching. You have made your choice. You have captured our ships and taken our people. That choice cannot be undone. But what happens next is still in your hands. Return us. Return our cargo. Issue a formal apology. Do this quickly, and this matter can still end peacefully. Wait too long, and... She shrugged. Well, you have heard of the Kethrai. Theron grabbed her arm, his claws digging into her flesh. She did not cry out. She did not pull away. She simply looked at his hand with an expression of mild curiosity. You think I am afraid of your legends? He hissed. You think I will release you because of stories told by senile elders? I think you should be afraid. Her voice did not change. But I know you are not. The young are rarely afraid until it is too late. He released her, disgusted. Take her back to her cell. I am done listening to human superstition. As the guards led her away, she called back over her shoulder. You have made your choice, Commander. I hope your people have made peace with their gods. Theron watched her go, then turned to stare out at the stars. For just a moment, he felt a chill run through his scales. Then he pushed it aside. Human tricks, human mind games, nothing more. He had made his choice, and he would not back down. Across the galaxy, in the great hall of the Conquered, the Arbiter sat in perfect stillness. His crystalline form had not moved in 3 days. His attention was focused entirely on the reports flowing in from across known space. The humans had done nothing. No transmissions, no fleet movements, no diplomatic protests. Nothing. This was what frightened him most. Vesazara entered the chamber and approached his seat. Arbiter. The other elders are growing concerned. Some believe we should intervene. Demand that the Velkari release the human prisoners. Intervention would only make things worse, the Arbiter said. The humans must see this as a Velkari action, not a Concord action. If we involve ourselves, they may expand their response to include us. So we do nothing? We do the only thing we can do. We wait, and we prepare. Prepare for what? The Arbiter's form flickered with ancient light. Prepare for the possibility that we have just witnessed the beginning of the Second Human War. Vesara shuddered. Surely it will not come to that. The Velkari are not the Kethrai. They have not killed anyone. No, not yet. But High Commander Theron is proud and ambitious. He will not back down easily. And the longer he holds those prisoners, the more time the humans have to prepare. Prepare what? Their military is tiny compared to the Velkari. The Arbiter turned to face her. You still do not understand, do you? Human strength is not in their military. It is in their minds, in their patience, in their absolute refusal to accept defeat. They are, even now, learning everything about the Velkari. They are finding weaknesses that the Velkari themselves do not know they have. They are developing plans and contingencies and fallback positions. They are testing Velkari security systems, mapping Velkari space, identifying every possible target, and they are doing all of this in silence, without warning, without mercy. Vesazara was quiet for a moment. What should we do? Begin evacuating non-essential personnel from systems bordering Velkari space. Quietly. Do not cause panic, but get our people to safety. You believe it is that serious? I believe that 3,000 years ago, the Kethrai believed they were untouchable. I believe the Velkari believe the same thing now. And I believe that humanity has not changed. They have not grown soft. They have not forgotten what they are capable of. They have simply been waiting for a reason to remember. In a holding cell aboard the Velkari flagship, Captain Elena Vasquez sat with her back against the wall, her eyes closed. Around her, the other human prisoners maintained similar postures, calm, patient, waiting. A Valkyrie guard passed by their cells regularly, observing them with growing confusion. He had expected fear, anger, desperation. Instead, he found only silence. On his 10th pass, one of the younger prisoners, a man named David Chen, opened his eyes and smiled at the guard. "Everything okay out there?" David asked pleasantly. The guard grunted and moved on, unsettled in a way he could not explain. Captain Vasquez opened her eyes and looked at David. "Patience, Mr. Chen." "I know, Captain. I just wanted to see how he reacted." "And?" David's smile widened slightly. "He is scared, Captain. He does not know why yet, but he is scared." Elena nodded and closed her eyes again. "They will all be scared soon enough. How long do you think, Captain?" "A few months. Maybe less. Our people do not rush these things, but they do not forget either." She thought about her crew. 47 men and women, taken from their ships and thrown into cells. Most of them were simply traders, people who wanted nothing more than to move cargo and earn a living. They had done nothing to deserve this, and yet none of them showed fear. None of them begged or pleaded. They knew what was coming. They had heard the stories passed down through generations. They understood what it meant when humanity was wronged. The Valkyrie thought they had taken prisoners. They were wrong. They had taken hostages. And somewhere in human space, a very old clock had just started ticking. Captain Vasquez smiled to herself in the darkness of her cell. The Valkyrie believed this story was about them. They believed they were the protagonists, the powerful empire teaching a lesser species its place. They were wrong about that too. This story was about humanity. It had always been about humanity. And the Valkyrie were about to learn, as the Kethrai had learned before them, that some stories do not end the way the villains expect. Some stories end with extinction. 6 months had passed since the capture of the human merchant vessels. 6 months of complete silence from human space. No diplomatic protests. No military posturing. No threats of any kind. High Commander Theron Voss stood before the Valkyrie Senate, basking in the glow of his apparent victory. "The elders warned us that humanity was dangerous," he declared, his voice echoing through the ornate chamber. "They told us stories of ancient wars and terrible vengeance. They demanded we live in fear of a species that cannot even muster a response to our actions." Senators shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Others nodded along, eager to show support for the rising military leader. 6 months, Theron continued. 6 months we have held their people. 6 months we have controlled their precious isotope trade. And what has humanity done? Nothing. Because they are nothing. Weak. Divided, incapable of challenging true galactic power. He paused dramatically. "I propose that we expand our territorial claims. The humans have proven they will not fight back. We should take advantage of this weakness. The isotope deposits in their space could fuel our expansion for centuries." The Senate erupted in debate. Some supported Theron's aggressive stance. Others urged caution. But no one could deny the apparent success of his gamble. Far above Valkyrie Prime, in the flagship that had become a permanent symbol of Theron's triumph, things were not going as smoothly. Fleet Admiral Koravan stared at her console with growing confusion. "Run the diagnostic again." "This is the 5th diagnostic, Admiral," her chief engineer said. "The results are the same. Minor fluctuations in our communication relays. Occasional delays in data transmission. Nothing critical. But the patterns are unusual." "Unusual how?" "They appear almost random. But there is something underneath, a structure we cannot quite identify. It is like someone is testing our systems, probing for weaknesses." Koravan frowned. She had served in the Valkyrie military for 40 years. She had survived 3 border wars and countless skirmishes. Her instincts had kept her alive when others died. Right now, her instincts were screaming. "Increase security protocols on all sensitive systems," she ordered. "And flag this for High Commander Theron's attention. The High Commander has marked all human-related concerns as low priority, Admiral. Then mark it as a routine maintenance issue. Just get it on his desk." The engineer nodded and hurried away. Koravan turned back to the viewport, staring out at the stars. Something was wrong. She could feel it, like a predator watching from the shadows. But whenever she tried to identify the source, there was nothing there, just silence. The first real incident occurred 3 weeks later. A Valkyrie supply convoy traveling through Sector 7 experienced a complete navigation failure. All 12 vessels suddenly received coordinates that placed them 300 light-years from their actual position. By the time the error was discovered, they had drifted into an uncharted asteroid field. 2 ships were destroyed. 47 crew members died. The official report blamed a software malfunction. Then the communications started going wrong. Military transmissions arrived hours late, sometimes days late. When they did arrive, portions were missing or corrupted. Classified orders appeared in civilian channels. Civilian messages appeared in classified channels. The official reports blamed aging infrastructure. Then the personnel files became corrupted. Promotion records vanished. Service histories were altered. Security clearances disappeared and reappeared at random. 3 admirals were briefly listed as deceased. A junior officer was temporarily promoted to Supreme Commander before the error was caught. The official reports blamed administrative oversights. High Commander Theron dismissed all of these concerns. Coincidences, he declared. The Empire is vast. Systems fail. Mistakes happen. This has nothing to do with the humans. But others were not so certain. In the Concorde's Great Hall, the Arbiter had stopped pretending to be inactive. His crystalline form pulsed with energy as he processed the reports flowing in from Velkari space. It has begun, he announced to the assembled elders. Vesara leaned forward. The glitches? The system failures? They are not glitches. They are not failures. They are messages. Messages? From the humans? Yes. They are demonstrating their capabilities, showing the Velkari what they have achieved, without the Velkari even knowing they were under attack. How is that possible? The Velkari have some of the most advanced security systems in the Concorde. The Arbiter's form flickered with what might have been dark amusement. The Velkari believe their systems are secure because they can detect attacks from other Concorde species. They have never faced human infiltration. They do not understand what they are dealing with. The human algorithms are not like ours. They do not simply attack or defend. They learn. They adapt. They evolve. Every attempt to detect them teaches them something new. Every security measure becomes a stepping stone. By now, I estimate that human software has infiltrated every major Velkari system. Their military networks, their financial systems, their power grids, their food distribution, their medical databases, everything. Vesara was silent for a moment. And they have not attacked yet? No. They are still gathering information, still preparing, still giving the Velkari chances to return their prisoners. What happens when they stop giving chances? The Arbiter did not answer. He did not need to. On Velkari Prime, in the maximum security facility where the human prisoners were held, Captain Elena Vasquez received an unexpected visitor. Fleet Admiral Koravan stood outside her cell, studying her with calculating eyes. Unlike Theron, there was no arrogance in her gaze, only caution, only awareness. Captain Vasquez, Koravan said, I believe we should talk. Elena rose from her bunk and approached the barrier. Admiral, this is unexpected. I have been studying your people, Captain. Not the official records, the old records, the ones that predate the Concorde. And what have you found? Disturbing things. Koravan's scales shifted to a muted gray, a color of deep concern. The Kethri were not weak. They were one of the most powerful species in this region of space. Their fall was not gradual. It was absolute. History is often unkind to those who underestimate their enemies. Is that what we are doing? Underestimating you? Elena considered the question carefully. Admiral, may I be honest with you? Please. I have been in this cell for 6 months. In that time, I have been fed. I have been given medical care when needed. I have not been tortured or abused. Your people have treated us with professional courtesy. This gives me hope. Koravan tilted her head. Hope? Hope that this can still end without destruction. The choice remains with you. Return us. Apologize. End this before it goes further. High Commander Theron will never agree to that. He believes he has won. Then High Commander Theron has already lost. He simply does not know it yet. Koravan was quiet for a long moment. What is happening to our systems, Captain? Our communications, our navigation, our personnel files. We cannot find the source. Elena smiled sadly. You cannot find the source because the source is everywhere. Your systems are no longer yours, Admiral. They have not been yours for months. The color drained from Koravan's scales. That is impossible. We would have detected an intrusion. You did not detect anything because there was nothing to detect. Human algorithms do not intrude. They become part of your systems. They learn your protocols. They follow your rules. They are invisible because they are indistinguishable from your own software. By the time you notice something wrong, it is already too late. The infection is total. Koravan stepped back, her military training struggling against rising panic. You are lying. This is psychological warfare. You want us to doubt ourselves. I am telling you the truth because I want you to understand. I want you to convince your people to end this. Because if you do not end it, my people will, and they will not end it gently. That night, Koravan submitted a classified report to High Command, outlining her concerns about possible human infiltration. The report was marked urgent, requiring immediate review. It sat unread for 3 days. When it was finally reviewed, the officer responsible for classification protocols noted that the report had been automatically downgraded to low priority by an unknown system process. He reported this anomaly to his superior. His superior's response never arrived. The anomalies continued to spread. Weapons systems reported false targeting data. Shield generators fluctuated at random intervals. Engine diagnostics showed perfect function on vessels that were actually experiencing mechanical failures. And still, High Commander Theron insisted everything was fine. The humans were beaten. The Empire was secure. Nothing was wrong. Then the transmission arrived. It came through every Valkyrie channel simultaneously. Military, civilian, government, private. Every screen on every world in Valkyrie space displayed the same message. It contained no threats, no demands. It contained only data. The complete personnel files of every Valkyrie military officer, from the lowest recruit to High Commander Theron himself. Service records, personal communications, medical histories, family connections, the locations of every secret military installation, including facilities so classified that even most admirals did not know they existed. The access codes to every defense network, every weapons system, every orbital platform, and at the end, a detailed file on High Commander Theron. His home address, his family members, his children's names, their school schedules, their favorite routes home. The message attached to this data package was simple. You have 14 standard days to return our people unharmed. This is not a negotiation. Panic spread through the Valkyrie command structure like fire through dry grass. Officers who had supported Theron suddenly found reasons to distance themselves. Senators who had praised his boldness suddenly remembered urgent business elsewhere. Theron himself stood in his command center, staring at the data on his screens. His scales had gone white with shock. His claws trembled. How? He whispered. How did they get all of this? No one answered. No one had an answer to give. Across the galaxy, other species watched with growing fear. The Morvani quietly moved their border fleets away from Valkyrie space. The Stellar Collective issued a statement of neutrality. Even the most aggressive species in the Concord found reasons to avoid any association with the Valkyrie. No one wanted to be standing near the target when the humans finally struck. In the Concord's Great Hall, the Arbiter addressed the assembled elders. 14 days, he said. The humans have given the Valkyrie 14 days. It is more generous than I expected. Will Theron comply? Vesara asked. I do not know. His pride may override his survival instinct. And if it does, the Arbiter's form flickered with something that might have been sorrow. Then we will witness something that has not happened in 3,000 years. And the Valkyrie will learn why their elders warned them never to provoke humanity. In her cell on Valkyrie Prime, Captain Elena Vasquez felt the change in the air before she heard the news. Guards who had been professional became nervous. Their movements became jerky, their eyes constantly checking shadows. One of them finally spoke to her, his voice barely above a whisper. The transmission, he said. We all received it. Everyone knows. Elena nodded calmly. Then you understand what is coming. What do we do? She looked at the young guard, seeing the fear in his eyes. He was barely an adult by Valkyrie standards. He had simply been doing his job, following orders. He did not deserve what was coming. Convince your commanders to return us, she said gently. Quickly, while there is still time. And if they refuse? Elena did not answer. She did not need to. The guard walked away, his scales pale with dread, and somewhere in human space, the clock continued to tick. 14 days, 13, 12, the countdown had begun. On the 15th day, High Commander Theron stood before an emergency session of the Velkari Senate. He wore his full military uniform, every medal and ribbon displayed proudly. His scales had returned to their normal deep purple, his confidence restored through sheer force of will. "The deadline has passed," he announced. "The humans have done nothing. As I predicted, their threats were empty. They lacked the military strength to challenge us, and they know it." Some senators nodded, relieved. Others remained skeptical, their scales shifting uneasily. "I propose we continue our current course," Theron continued. "We will expand our territorial claims. We will exploit the human weakness. The Velkari Empire will become the dominant force in this region of space, and the conquered will have no choice but to acknowledge our power." He paused for effect, his chest swelling with pride. "Today marks the beginning of a new era, the era of Velkari supremacy." The lights went out, not just in the Senate chamber, across the entire capital city, across the entire planet, across every Velkari world simultaneously. For exactly 30 seconds, the Velkari Empire went dark. Then the lights returned, as suddenly as they had gone. Emergency systems hummed back to life. Screens flickered and stabilized, and on every screen, on every world, a single line of text appeared. "We warned you." The panic that followed was absolute. Military installations scrambled to assess the situation. Orbital defense platforms ran diagnostics. Fleet commanders demanded status reports, and found nothing wrong. Every system showed normal function. Every defense was intact. Every weapon was operational. But everyone understood the message. The humans had just demonstrated that they could turn off the Velkari Empire whenever they wanted. Every system, every world, every piece of technology. They had chosen not to destroy anything. They had chosen not to kill anyone. This time, Fleet Admiral Koravan reached High Commander Theron within minutes of the blackout. She found him standing in the darkened Senate chamber, staring at the line of text that still glowed on every screen. "We must release the prisoners," she said. "Immediately." "Before this goes further," Theron did not respond. "High Commander, did you hear me? We must act now. Whatever pride we sacrifice is nothing compared to what they can do." Theron turned slowly. His eyes were wild, his scales shifting through colors too rapidly to interpret. "They cannot do this. This is impossible. We are the Velkari. We are a power of the Concord. We will not be threatened by primitive apes. With respect, sir, they have already done it. They have proven they can disable our entire civilization at will. We have no defense. We have no response. We have nothing. Then we will find something." Theron slammed his fist against a console. "Gather the fleet. All ships. We will strike at human space. We will show them that the Velkari are not afraid." Koravan stared at him in disbelief. "Sir, that would be suicide. We have no idea what defenses they possess. We do not even know if our ships will function properly in human space. We will function because we are warriors, because we do not surrender, because the Velkari have never bowed to anyone. The Kethrai were warriors too, sir." Theron froze. For a moment, something like sanity flickered in his eyes, then it was gone. "Prepare the fleet, Admiral. That is an order." Koravan saluted stiffly and walked away. She had already decided what she needed to do. 1 hour later, the Velkari fleet began to mobilize. 300 warships, the pride of the Empire, assembled in formation above Velkari Prime. Their engines hummed with power, their weapons powered up. Their crews waited for the order to move. The order never came. As High Commander Theron prepared to give the command, chaos erupted across his fleet. Navigation systems reported that Velkari Prime was located in empty space, thousands of light years from its actual position. Weapons targeting systems locked onto friendly vessels and refused to disengage. Communication channels filled with static and garbled transmissions. And one by one, the orbital defense platforms surrounding Velkari Prime began to rotate, their weapons tracking not toward the stars, but toward the planet itself. "What is happening?" Theron screamed into his communicator. "Report," a calm voice responded. It was not any of his officers. "High Commander Theron Voss." The voice was female, speaking in perfect Velkari. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Forces. You failed to meet our deadline. The consequences begin now. You cannot do this. The Concord will not allow it. You will start a galactic war. The Concord has already issued a statement of non-interference." They understand that we did not start this conflict. You did, and we are simply ending it. Theron's scales went white. What do you want? We want our people back. But we have moved beyond simple demands. You had 14 days to comply. You chose not to. Now we will demonstrate why that was unwise. We will release them. Today. Right now. That is no longer sufficient. Admiral Chen's voice remained calm, almost pleasant. You see, High Commander, we have a policy. When our people are taken, we do not simply recover them. We ensure that the party responsible can never threaten us again. Your fleet is crippled. Your defense platforms are now under our control. Your planetary power grid will fail in exactly 3 hours if we choose. Your financial systems have already begun to collapse as we speak. We have not fired a single weapon. We have not killed a single person. But make no mistake, Commander. We can. And we will, if necessary. What do you want? Theron repeated, desperation creeping into his voice. We want you to understand. We want your entire civilization to understand. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is not defenseless. Humanity has simply chosen not to demonstrate its capabilities until now. You have seen a fraction of what we can do. Imagine what else we have prepared. Imagine what we would do if you had harmed our prisoners. Imagine what we will do if anyone ever tries this again. And then, Commander, you will release our people. You will issue a formal apology. You will submit to whatever reparations the Concord deems appropriate. And you will remember, for the rest of your empire's existence, why your elders told you to leave us alone. The transmission ended. Theron stood in silence, surrounded by the chaos of his failing fleet. Officers rushed back and forth, trying desperately to regain control of systems that no longer responded to their commands. On the ground, reports were flooding in. Banks were failing. Power grids were fluctuating. Food distribution networks were showing impossible errors. Medical systems were losing patient records. The entire infrastructure of the Velcari Empire was collapsing, not through destruction, but through simple malfunction. Everything still existed. Nothing worked, and 300 warships hung motionless in space, their weapons pointed at each other, their crews helpless to do anything but watch. Fleet Admiral Koravan approached Theron one final time. Sir, we must surrender. Now. While we still can. Theron looked at her with hollow eyes. I thought we were stronger than them. We were never stronger than them, sir. We were simply fortunate that they never had a reason to show us what they could do. Theron was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he removed the insignia of his rank and placed it on the console before him. Order the release of the prisoners, he said quietly. Have a formal apology prepared, and contact the Concord. Tell them we surrender unconditionally. Yes, sir. And Admiral? Sir, make sure the apology is sincere. I do not want to give them any reason to demonstrate anything else. The release of the human prisoners was conducted with elaborate ceremony. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew walked out of their detention facility to find a full honor guard waiting. The highest-ranking officers of the Velcari military standing at attention. Elena walked past them without acknowledging their presence. She paused only once, in front of High Commander Theron, who had been required to attend as part of his penance. You should have listened to your elders, she said simply. Then she continued to the waiting human vessel that had materialized in orbit, passing through Velcari defenses that had been completely powerless to detect it. Behind her, the Velcari Empire began the long process of rebuilding from a defeat that had not killed a single person but had destroyed everything that made them a power. Their military was humiliated. Their economy was in ruins. Their allies had abandoned them. Their enemies watched with predatory interest, sensing weakness. And across the galaxy, species that had doubted the ancient warnings suddenly remembered why the elders had been so afraid. In the Concord's Great Hall, the Arbiter watched the final reports with something approaching satisfaction. It is done, Vesara said. The humans have withdrawn. Their prisoners are safe. The Velcari are broken. Yes. And no one died. I find that remarkable. The Kethri were exterminated. The Velcari were simply dismantled. The Kethri killed humans. The Velcari only held them captive. The response was proportionate. Vesazara considered this. Then the humans can show restraint. The humans always show restraint until they cannot. That is what makes them so terrifying. They do not lash out in anger. They calculate. They prepare. They respond with precisely the force necessary to achieve their objectives. If the Velkari had killed even one prisoner, we would be watching extinction rather than embarrassment. He paused, his crystalline form flickering with ancient memories. The other species must learn from this. They must see what happens when the warnings are ignored. And they must understand that this was mercy. This was the gentle option. Humanity does not want war. They do not want conquest. They want only to be left in peace. But they will never, ever be victims. And those who try to make them victims will discover exactly what lies beneath the surface of that seemingly ordinary species. We were wise to fear them, Vesara. Today proves that we were right. Across human space, life returned to normal with remarkable speed. The merchant vessels that had been captured were replaced. Trade routes resumed. People went back to their jobs, their families, their ordinary lives. Admiral Sarah Chen submitted her final report and returned to her quiet home on the colony world of New Portland. She tended her garden. She read books. She had dinner with her family. No one who met her would have guessed that she had just brought an empire to its knees. This was, perhaps, what made humanity truly dangerous. They could destroy civilizations. They could erase species from existence. They could bring the mighty low with nothing but patience and preparation. And then they could go home and forget about it, because to them, it was not conquest. It was not war. It was simply problem solving. A threat had emerged. The threat had been neutralized. Now life could continue. The Velkari would spend generations recovering from a conflict that humanity had already stopped thinking about. And somewhere, in the dark spaces between stars, the machines that humanity had left behind continued to watch, continued to learn, continued to prepare, just in case, always just in case. 1 year had passed since the fall of the Velkari Empire. The Great Hall of the Conquered had never been so full. Representatives from all 12 member species filled their designated sections, with observers from dozens more crowding into the viewing galleries. Even species that normally avoided galactic politics had sent delegates to witness this moment. High Commander Theron Vass stood in the center of the chamber, stripped of his rank, his scales faded to a dull gray. He wore the simple garments of a criminal, his wrists bound in ceremonial chains. Around him, the evidence of his crimes was displayed on holographic screens. The trial had lasted 3 months. Witnesses had testified. Records had been examined. The full scope of Theron's recklessness had been exposed for all to see. Not before a human court. The humans had not requested any role in the proceedings. They had simply provided evidence when asked and otherwise remained silent. This was Concord justice, and the Concord had been harsh. The arbiter rose to deliver the verdict. His crystalline form glowed with solemn light as he addressed the assembly. Theron Vass, you have been found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. You violated Concord law. You endangered countless lives through your arrogance. You ignored the warnings of the elders. You brought your people to the edge of extinction. The Velkari Empire has paid the price for your ambition. Their military is disbanded. Their worlds are administered by Concord peacekeepers. Their people live under restrictions that will not be lifted for generations. And you, Theron Vass, will spend the remainder of your life on a prison station orbiting a dead star. You will have no visitors. You will have no communication with the outside world. You will have nothing but time to contemplate the consequences of your choices. Theron did not respond. There was nothing left to say. Guards led him away, and the chamber fell silent for a long moment. Then a new figure entered, walking with calm confidence to the center of the hall. Captain Elena Vasquez, now formally designated as humanity's representative to the Concord, stood where Theron had stood moments before. She wore civilian clothes, plain and practical. She carried no weapons. She was accompanied by no guards, and yet every eye in the chamber followed her with something approaching awe. Representatives of the Conquered, she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. I bring greetings from the United Human Territories. We thank you for the opportunity to address this assembly. The arbiter nodded. You have the floor, Representative Vasquez. I am not here to make demands, Elena said. I am not here to issue threats. I am not here to claim territory or resources or power. I am here to offer a gift. She raised her hand, and a data package appeared in holographic display. Charts and diagrams filled the air, showing medical breakthroughs, agricultural advances, Energy technologies. This is our gift to the conquered. The collected knowledge of humanity in fields where we have made progress beyond current galactic standards. Free of charge, no strings attached. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This was not what anyone had expected. Our medical technology can increase average lifespans by 20% across most species. Our agricultural methods can improve crop yields on marginal worlds by up to 40%. Our energy systems can provide clean power at a fraction of current costs. We offer this knowledge freely because we wish to be good neighbors. We wish to contribute to galactic civilization. We wish to prove that humanity is not the monster that some believe us to be. She paused, letting her words sink in. We never wanted war with the Velkari. We never wanted to demonstrate our capabilities in such a dramatic fashion. We simply wanted to trade peacefully, to live quietly, to be left alone. But we will not apologize for what we did. The Velkari took our people. They ignored our warnings. They forced us to act. We responded with the minimum force necessary to secure our citizens and protect our interests. No one died. No worlds were destroyed. No species was exterminated. This was our choice. We chose restraint because restraint was possible. Her voice hardened slightly. But let me be absolutely clear. Our restraint was a choice. It can be withdrawn. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. The Velkari tested our resolve and found it firm. They tested our capabilities and found them overwhelming. They tested our patience and found it exhausted. We would prefer that no other species repeat this experiment. We would prefer to be known as traders and scientists and artists. We would prefer to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity. But if we are forced to demonstrate our other capabilities, we will, without hesitation, without mercy. And the next example will make the Velkari seem fortunate. The Arbiter leaned forward. Representative Vasquez, may I ask a question? Of course, Arbiter. 3,000 years ago, humanity destroyed the Kethrai. 14 trillion sentient beings, erased from existence. You say you prefer peace. How do we reconcile this preference with that history? Elena was quiet for a moment, considering her response carefully. The Kethrai killed 40,000 humans, she said finally. Civilians, colonists, families. They attacked without warning and without provocation. They showed no mercy and offered no terms. We responded in kind. We destroyed them completely because we could not afford to leave survivors. Survivors would have sought revenge. They would have attacked again. The cycle would have continued indefinitely. We chose extinction because extinction was the only way to ensure our children would never face the same threat. It was not a decision we made lightly. It haunts us still. The weight of 14 trillion deaths is not something we carry easily. But we would make the same choice again. And we would make it for any species that kills our people. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. You have heard the stories. You know what we are capable of. Some of you fear us. Some of you hate us. Some of you wish we would simply disappear. But consider this. In 3,000 years, we have fought exactly one war. One. We destroyed the Kethrai because they gave us no choice. We humbled the Velkari because they ignored our warnings. Every other species in this galaxy, we have left in peace. We have traded with you. We have shared knowledge with you. We have asked only to be treated with the same respect we show to others. We are not monsters. We are simply people. People who have learned, through bitter experience, that the universe respects only strength. We do not want to be feared. We want to be friends. But we will never, ever be victims. She fell silent, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Arbiter rose, his ancient form radiating something that might have been respect. Representative Vasquez, on behalf of the Concord, I thank you for your words and for your gift. We accept both in the spirit in which they are offered. I move that Directive 7 be elevated from a recommendation to the highest law of galactic civilization. Henceforth, any species that provokes humanity will face immediate expulsion from the Concord and will receive no protection or assistance from any member world. Furthermore, I move that humanity be offered full membership in the Concord, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The vote was unanimous. As the assembly dispersed, Vessera approached the Arbiter. You offered them membership, she said. After everything that has happened. After everything they have done. After everything they could have done and chose not to, the Arbiter corrected. The Velkari attacked them. The humans responded with restraint. They could have exterminated the Velkari as easily as they exterminated the Kethrai. They chose mercy instead. That means something. That suggests they can be reasoned with. That suggests they genuinely want peace. And, if they do not, the Arbiter's form flickered with dark amusement. Then it hardly matters whether they are members of the Concord or not. Does it? If humanity truly wanted to destroy us, there is nothing we could do to stop them. Better to have them as allies than as enemies. Better to understand them than to fear them. Better to trust their stated intentions than to provoke them through suspicion. He paused, ancient memories stirring within his crystalline structure. Besides, Directive 7 remains in effect. It has simply been formalized. We will continue to avoid provoking humanity. And now they have a stake in galactic stability. They have a reason to protect the Concord, rather than destroy it. This is the best outcome we could have hoped for. The Velkari have been punished. Humanity has been satisfied. The galaxy has received a reminder of why the old warnings exist, and perhaps, in time, we will learn to see the humans not as monsters, but as what they claim to be. Simply people, trying to survive in a dangerous universe. Across the galaxy, life continued. The Velkari slowly rebuilt their shattered civilization, now under the watchful eye of conquered administrators. Their children learned a new history in their schools, one that emphasized the consequences of arrogance and the importance of respecting other species. The conquered implemented new protocols for dealing with human space. Trade agreements were formalized. Cultural exchange programs were established. Scientists from dozens of species traveled to human worlds to learn from their remarkable technology, and the old warnings were carved into stone on every world, in every language, impossible to forget or ignore. The humans are not weak. They are not primitive. They are not safe. Do not provoke them. Do not threaten them. Do not harm them. Their mercy is a gift. Their wrath is extinction. Captain Elena Vasquez returned to her cargo ship after her speech to the Concord. She had been offered positions of power, titles of prestige, rewards beyond measure. She had refused them all. I am a traitor, she explained to the bewildered Concord officials. That is all I ever wanted to be. I got caught up in something bigger, but it is over now. I want to go back to my life. And so she did. She returned to the merchant routes, carrying cargo between stars, living quietly among her crew. The universe faded back to normal around her, but sometimes, late at night, she would stand at the viewport of her ship and stare out at the stars. She would think about the Velkari guards she had met, the young ones who had shown her small kindnesses during her imprisonment. She hoped they were doing well. She would think about the Kethrai, a species she had never known, erased from existence before she was born. 14 trillion lives, ended because they made the wrong choice. She would think about the responsibility that came with humanity's power, the terrible burden of knowing that her species could destroy civilizations with barely any effort, and she would hope that no one would ever force them to use that power again. But she knew, deep in her heart, that hope was not enough. There would always be another Theron, another ambitious leader who believed the old warnings were exaggeration. There would always be another species that thought they could take what they wanted without consequence, and when that happened, humanity would respond, as they always had, as they always would, not with anger or malice, not with joy or pride, simply with cold, calculated efficiency, because that was what they were. That was what the universe had made them. Survivors, protectors, and, when necessary, destroyers. The galaxy had learned its lesson. For now, but somewhere, in some distant corner of the cosmos, another civilization was rising. Another species was developing faster than light travel. Another ambitious leader was dreaming of conquest and glory. And one day, they too would encounter humanity. They too would hear the warnings. They too would have to choose whether to listen or to learn the hard way. The cycle was endless. The pattern was eternal. But for now, there was peace. For now, the galaxy slept quietly, secure in the knowledge that the most dangerous species in the universe had chosen to be gentle. For now, always for now. Elena turned away from the viewport and returned to her duties. There was cargo to move, schedules to keep, life to live. Behind her, the stars burned in the darkness, ancient and patient, waiting, always waiting, just in case. The metal floor of the USS Horizon hummed beneath Lieutenant Allison Gray's boots as she stood at the observation deck. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue uniform was crisp and perfect. Through the massive window before her, she watched the stars, but today something else caught her eye. A strange ship approached Earth. It was huge, at least 3 times the size of the Horizon, with a design unlike anything humans had built. Its surface gleamed like polished bone under the sun. "Lieutenant, what do you make of that?" "Captain Frank," Porter asked as he joined her. He was a tall man with short gray hair and deep lines around his eyes from years of squinting at distant horizons. "I don't know, sir," Allison said. "But I think our first contact day has finally arrived. For decades, humanity had sent signals into space hoping for a response. Now, without warning, the aliens had come. All stations, prepare for first contact protocol." Porter spoke into his comm device. His voice was calm, but Allison noticed how his hand rested near his sidearm. "Lieutenant Gray, you're with me. Command center in 5 minutes." The command center buzzed with activity. Officers moved quickly between stations, checking readings and preparing defense systems. On the main screen, the alien ship grew larger. As it settled into orbit alongside the International Space Station, "They're sending a transmission," said Communications Officer Ben Kelly. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his fingers moved across his control panel. I think they're speaking English." "Put it through," Porter ordered. The screen flickered and Allison's breath caught in her throat. The alien that appeared had a face that reminded her of a lizard, but with features that seemed almost cat-like. Its scales were a deep purple with gold markings, and its eyes were large, yellow, and unblinking. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, its mouth moving in strange ways around the familiar words. "I am Supreme Hunter Zarkesh of the Vexari Dominion. We have come to establish formal contact with your world." Porter stepped forward. "This is Captain Frank Porter of the United States Navy vessel Horizon. On behalf of Earth, we welcome you." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your welcome is noted, though perhaps premature. We request a meeting with your leaders. We will send a shuttle to your coordinates in 6 of your hours." Before Porter could respond, the transmission ended. "Well," Porter said, turning to his crew, "looks like we need to call the president." 6 hours later, Allison stood in a hastily prepared conference room at the naval base. Representatives from major world powers sat around a long table, their faces tense. Armed guards lined the walls. The door opened, and 3 Vexari entered. They moved with a fluid grace that reminded Allison of large predators. Zarkesh led them, standing nearly 7 feet tall. Up close, Allison could see that what she had thought were decorations were actually weapons integrated into their armor. "Thank you for agreeing to meet us," the United States President said, rising to greet them. Zarkesh did not sit. Instead, he paced slowly around the table, studying each human with those unblinking eyes. "Your gratitude is misplaced," he finally said. "We are not here to welcome you to the galactic community. We are here to contain a threat." The room went silent. "Threat?" the Chinese representative asked. "We have done nothing to your people." "Not yet," Zarkesh said. "But your potential concerns us. Your planet has been classified as a Class 12 death world." He touched a device on his wrist, and a hologram appeared in the center of the table. It showed Earth, spinning slowly, surrounded by data in an alien language. "This is the highest danger rating in the Galactic Index," Zarkesh continued. "Only 17 worlds among the thousands we have cataloged reach this classification. Of those, only Earth has produced a technologically advanced species." Allison leaned forward. "What makes Earth so dangerous?" Zarkesh turned those yellow eyes on her. "Everything. Your gravity is crushing. Your atmosphere is toxic with oxygen. Your temperature variations would kill most species. Your world is constantly trying to destroy you, yet you thrive." He touched the device again, and the hologram changed to show a human silhouette. "And then there is your species." Zarkesh sounded almost disgusted. You can survive radiation that would kill others. You can endure temperature extremes with minimal protection. Your bodies repair themselves from injuries that would be fatal to most species. The Russian representative laughed. You make us sound impressive. We consider ourselves rather fragile. That is because you have not seen true fragility. One of the other Vexari hissed. You break bones and continue fighting. You lose blood and stay conscious. You eat plants and animals that contain compounds toxic to most life forms. And most concerning, Zarkesh added, you are relentless. Most predator species hunt until they are tired or satisfied. You hunted prey until they collapsed from exhaustion, even if it took days. No other species does this. Porter stood up, slowly. Are you saying you're afraid of us? Caution is not fear, Captain, Zarkesh said, but Allison noticed a subtle change in his posture. We simply recognize the danger you present. The Galactic Council has decided on quarantine rather than elimination for now. Elimination? The President's voice was sharp. You're threatening us? Merely stating facts, Zarkesh replied. Here are the terms. Earth will remain isolated. You may continue development within your solar system but may not establish colonies beyond it. Any attempt to do so will be considered an act of aggression and will result in sterilization measures. The meeting dissolved into angry shouts and demands for clarification. Through it all, Allison watched the aliens. They kept their distance from the humans, she realized. They positioned themselves near exits. Their hands never strayed far from their weapons. They were afraid. Not just cautious. Genuinely afraid. Hours later, after the aliens had returned to their ship with the quarantine agreement reluctantly signed, Allison found Porter staring out a window at the night sky. They see us as monsters, he said quietly. Yes, sir, Allison agreed. But they're wrong about one thing. Porter looked at her. What's that, Lieutenant? They think keeping us contained will make them safe, she said. But if there's one thing humans have always done, it's break through barriers. Porter nodded slowly. They fear us now, without even knowing what we're really capable of. He turned back to the window. Get some rest, Lieutenant Gray. Tomorrow we start planning. Planning for what, sir? His reflection in the glass showed a grim smile. For the day when the galaxy learns that the most dangerous thing about humans isn't our bodies or our world. It's what we do when someone tells us we can't do something. As Allison walked away, she felt a strange mix of fear and pride. Humans were considered dangerous by beings who had crossed the stars. It was terrifying to think of what might come next, but also oddly comforting to know that Earth's children might not be as helpless in the cosmos as they had feared. The quarantine was meant to be a cage, but humans had never been good at staying in cages. Dr. Alan West stared out the small window of his living quarters on the Vexari research station, Nexus 9. Earth was a blue dot in the distance, so small he could cover it with his thumb. 6 months had passed since first contact, and he was the only human allowed to leave Earth's solar system. Alan ran his hand through his brown hair and sighed. The Vexari had invited him to study with them as part of a scientific exchange, but he knew the truth. They wanted to study him as much as they wanted his help studying other species. His door chimed, and he turned to see Dr. Kelnar enter. The female Vexari scientist was shorter than most of her kind, with teal scales that shimmered under the lights. As always, she kept at least 10 feet between herself and Alan. Good morning, Dr. West, she said. We have new specimens in Lab 4. Your presence is requested. Alan nodded and followed her into the hallway. He noticed how other aliens moved aside as he walked by. Some pressed against the walls, their eyes wide with what he now recognized as fear. They still act like I'm going to attack them, Alan said quietly. Kelnar glanced back at him. You cannot blame them. Most have never seen a human before. Your reputation precedes you. In Lab 4, 3 other alien scientists worked at stations around a central table. On the table lay a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a wolf with 8 legs ending in paws and multiple eyes across its furry head. This is a predator from Krell 6, Kelnar explained. It is considered the apex hunter of its world. Alan studied the sedated creature. "It's beautiful," he said. "What do you need from me?" "We want to compare its hunting adaptations to yours," said another scientist, a bulbous being named Grath, whose species communicated through color changes and scent as much as words. Alan frowned. "I'm not a hunter." The aliens exchanged looks that Alan couldn't read. "All humans are hunters," Kelnar said. "It is in your biology." For the next several hours, Alan worked with the team, comparing the Krellian predator's physical abilities to human baselines. The creature could jump 20 feet, had claws that could tear through metal, and could see in almost complete darkness. By all measures, it should have made humans look weak in comparison. But then came the endurance tests. "This cannot be right," Grath said, checking the readings again. "According to these simulations, a human could outlast the Krellian in a prolonged hunt." "Humans aren't very fast," Alan explained. "But we can keep going for a very long time. We evolved as persistence hunters." The aliens fell silent, their expressions showing what Alan had come to recognize as their version of horror. "You pursued prey until it collapsed from exhaustion?" Kelnar asked. "Some human cultures still hunt that way," Alan said. "Run after an animal for hours or even days until it can't run anymore." The room temperature seemed to drop. Alan had learned that the Vexari and many other species were ambush predators. The idea of relentlessly pursuing prey was disturbing to them on a deep level. After the tests were complete, Alan returned to his quarters to send his weekly message to Earth. Lieutenant Gray, now promoted to lieutenant commander, was his main contact. He carefully composed his message, knowing the Vexari would read it. "Scientific exchange progressing well," he wrote. "Learning much about galactic biology, missing Earth's coffee and sunshine." That was the official message. But hidden within, it was a code they had developed. The first letter of every third word spelled out, "Vexari divided on humans, some want peace, others war." He sent the message and then pulled out his personal tablet. The Vexari had given it to him for entertainment, but he had discovered he could access parts of the station's information network through it. What he found troubled him deeply. The Vexari had been watching Earth for centuries. They had records of human wars, human exploration, and human resilience, and they were terrified. Some of their oldest legends spoke of a time when the Vexari were not the dominant predators of their section of the galaxy. There were hints that they had encountered Earth before, perhaps millions of years ago, and the meeting had not gone well for them. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. Alan jumped up as red lights flashed in his room. Something was wrong. He ran to his door, but it was locked. Through the small window in the door, he saw aliens rushing past. He banged on the door until a security officer stopped. "What's happening?" Alan shouted. "Lab accident," the officer said. "Toxic gas release in Lab 4. Stay in your quarters." Alan felt cold fear grip him. Lab 4 was where they had been working all day. Kelnar and the others were still there. Without thinking, he overrode the door lock using a trick he had learned while exploring the station's systems. The door slid open and he ran toward Lab 4. The hallway near the lab was filled with a greenish mist. 2 aliens lay on the floor, not moving. Alan pulled his shirt over his mouth and nose and pushed forward. Inside the lab, he found Kelnar, collapsed near a broken container. He lifted her, she was surprisingly light, and carried her out of the lab. After setting her down in a clear area, he went back for the others. By the time security arrived with breathing equipment, Alan had rescued all 3 scientists. He sat against a wall, coughing and dizzy from the gas, but alive. The security team stared at him in shock. "How are you conscious?" one asked. "That gas should have killed you instantly." Alan shrugged. "Guess humans are resistant." Later in the medical bay, Alan watched as Kelnar regained consciousness. Her scales had dulled to a pale blue, but the doctors said she would recover. "You saved my life," she said weakly. "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Alan replied simply. Kelnar studied him for a long moment. "The Leadership Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the human question," she said quietly. "Some want to integrate your species slowly into the galactic community. Others, she looked away, want to eliminate the threat we pose, Alan finished for her. She nodded. I will speak for integration now. But you must understand, Dr. West. Many of my people will never see humans as anything but dangerous predators. That night, as Alan lay in his bed, he composed one final message to Lieutenant Commander Gray. It was short and without their usual code. They're planning something. Earth needs to prepare. As he sent it, alarms sounded again. His door burst open and security officers rushed in. They held weapons trained on him, their hands shaking. Dr. Alan West, the lead officer said, you are being temporarily sedated. For further biological examination, please do not resist. Alan raised his hand slowly. I'm not a threat to you, he said. The officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. The accident proved otherwise. You survived what should have been lethal. The traditionalists are calling you the unkillable one. Your kind terrifies us, human. As the sedative took effect and darkness closed in, Alan's last thought was of Earth, small and blue and fragile looking from space, but home to a species that made the galaxy's apex predators tremble. 1 year had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray stood in the main briefing room of the newly built Galactic Relations Center in Washington, D.C. The room was filled with military officers and government officials, all focused on the large screen showing a message from the Vixari. They want what? Asked Admiral Frank Porter, his eyebrows raised in surprise. They want 5 human representatives to attend something called the Galactic Summit on Classified Species, Allison explained. The message is from Supreme Hunter Zarkesh himself. The room buzzed with whispers. Earth had been under quarantine for a year, with Vixari ships patrolling the edges of the solar system. This was the first invitation to leave the quarantine zone. It could be a trap, said General Rick Davis, his face grim. Or it could be a chance to change their minds about us, Allison countered. Dr. West's last message suggested divisions among the Vixari. This might be from the group that wants peace. After hours of debate, the decision was made. Admiral Porter would lead a team of 5 humans to the summit. He selected Allison, Dr. Alan West, who had been returned to Earth 3 months earlier in what the Vixari called a gesture of goodwill, Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, a Marine combat specialist, and Professor William Clark, an expert in languages and communication. 2 weeks later, they boarded a Vixari shuttle. It was their first time seeing the aliens' technology up close, and Allison marveled at the smooth, organic design of the ship's interior. It feels like we're inside a living thing, Maya whispered, her hand never far from where her weapon would normally be. As an expert in hand-to-hand combat, she felt naked without it. The journey took 3 days. They spent most of it preparing, studying the limited information they had about the other species that would be at the summit. Finally, they arrived at a massive space station orbiting a red-orange planet. Welcome to Station Apex, said a Vixari guide who met them at the docking. The Vixari homeworld Vextar lies below. The summit begins tomorrow. You have been assigned quarters in the blue sector. Please follow me. Their rooms were comfortable but clearly designed for monitoring. Allison found 3 different types of cameras hidden in the walls of her room. That evening, they were invited to a pre-summit gathering in a large hall. As they entered, Allison felt dozens of alien eyes turn to look at them. Species of all shapes and sizes filled the room, but they all moved away as the humans approached. They're scared of us, William noted quietly. All of them. A tall, mantis-like being approached them, its movements careful and measured. You are the Earth delegation, it said in a clicking voice. I am Tziktal of the Rax Hive. We too come from what they call a death world, though only Class 9. Pleased to meet you, Admiral Porter said, extending his hand before remembering that not all species shook hands. He lowered it awkwardly. Ziktal's large compound eyes studied them. A warning, Earth beings. This is not truly a summit. It is a display. The Vixari want to show the galaxy why some species are classified as dangerous. Be prepared for tests. Before they could ask more questions, Supreme Hunter Zarkesh entered the hall. All conversation stopped. He looked exactly as Allison remembered, his purple scales gleaming in the light. But now he wore an elaborate headdress that seemed to signify his rank. "Welcome, representatives of the galaxy's most formidable worlds," Zarkesh announced. "Tomorrow you will demonstrate your species' capabilities. Rest well." The next morning, they were led to a massive arena. The human team wore matching blue uniforms provided by their hosts. In the center of the arena stood Zarkesh with several other high-ranking Vexari. "The first challenge tests physical endurance," Zarkesh announced. "Each species will select one representative." The humans chose Sergeant Rodriguez, the fittest among them. She joined representatives from 7 other species, in what turned out to be a grueling test of strength and stamina. They had to run on tracks with gradually increasing gravity, lift heavier and heavier weights, and finally endure extreme temperatures. 3 of the alien competitors collapsed within the first hour. 2 more gave up during the gravity test. In the end, only Maya, Ziktal, and a massive bear-like creature remained. The temperature dropped to freezing, then rose to desert heat, then dropped again. The bear creature growled and stepped off the track. Ziktal lasted another 30 minutes before his exoskeleton began to crack from the strain. Maya, sweating but steady, completed the course alone. The watching aliens murmured in shock. Even the Vexari judges seemed disturbed. "Humans evolved on a planet with extreme temperature variations," Alan explained to a group of curious aliens afterward. "We can adapt to almost any climate given time." The second challenge tested problem solving. The competitors faced a series of puzzles that required both logical thinking and physical manipulation. Professor Clark represented the humans and finished second, beaten only by a jellyfish-like being whose tentacles could work on multiple parts of the puzzle simultaneously. "The humans show concerning levels of adaptability," Allison overheard one Vexari official say to another. "Their physical capabilities are impressive, but their minds make them truly dangerous." The final challenge of the day was combat. Each species would face off against a Vexari champion in what Zarkesh called a controlled encounter. Maya stepped forward again. Her opponent was a female Vexari named Krelvun, slightly larger than Zarkesh and covered in battle scars. "Our gravity is higher than yours," Krelvun said as they circled each other in the fighting ring. "Our reflexes are faster. You cannot win, human." Maya didn't respond. She simply watched, waiting. When Krelvun attacked, Maya used the Vexari's momentum against her, sending her flying across the ring. The crowd gasped. The fight was brutal, but quick. Maya moved with a fluid grace that surprised even her teammates. She avoided Krelvun's powerful blows and landed precise strikes of her own. In less than 5 minutes, the Vexari champion lay on her back, Maya's foot on her throat. The Bais arena went silent. No one, especially not the Vexari, had expected a human to defeat one of their champions in direct combat. That night, as the human team gathered in Admiral Porter's room to discuss the day's events, Professor Clark shared something disturbing. "I've been monitoring their communications channels," he said. "Some of the Vexari are calling for immediate action against Earth. They're saying we're too dangerous to allow us to develop further. We need to get out of here and warn Earth." Admiral Porter said, his face grim. "There's more," Alan added quietly. "I've been studying their historical databases. There are references to an ancient encounter between Vexari ancestors and a world that sounds a lot like prehistoric Earth. They don't give details, but whatever happened, it left a deep cultural scar. I think that's why they fear us so much. We've met before long ago and it didn't end well for them." Allison looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, still under quarantine, unaware of the danger building. "We need a plan," she said. "Not just to escape, but to change how they see us. We can't fight the entire galaxy, but maybe we can make them respect us enough to leave us alone." Maya, still bruised from her fight, smiled grimly. "If they want to see what humans are really capable of, I say we show them." The human team's escape from the Vexari station was not elegant, but it worked. They had stolen a small transport ship with the help of Dr. Kelnar, who had secretly contacted Alan during the night. She believed war with humans would destroy both their species. The traditionalists will kill you before you leave the station if they learn what happened in the combat ring. She had warned. You must go now. Now, 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray stood before the United Nations Security Council. The room was tense as she finished explaining what they had learned. The Vexari are divided on how to deal with us, she said. The progressive faction wants cautious integration. The traditionalists see us as an existential threat that must be eliminated. Based on the communications Professor Clark intercepted, the traditionalists are gaining power. How much time do we have? Asked the Secretary General, her face grave. Admiral Porter stepped forward. Weeks, maybe months. They're gathering a battle fleet. Our quarantine might soon become an extermination. The room erupted in panicked discussion. Earth had been building up its space defenses over the past year, but they were nowhere near ready to face an advanced alien armada. We need allies, Allison said firmly, cutting through the noise. The Vexari aren't the only advanced species. Some of the others at the summit seemed less afraid of us, more curious. You want to reach out to other aliens? The U.S. president looked skeptical. How? We're under quarantine. We have a Vexari ship, Allison reminded him, and Dr. West has the coordinates for several non-Vexari worlds. 2 days later, Allison found herself back in space. This time, she was leading the mission with Dr. West, Professor Clark, and a small crew aboard the stolen Vexari vessel, which they had named the Horizon 2, in honor of the ship that had first made contact with the aliens. Their first destination was the homeworld of the Kaldar, a species they had briefly met at the summit. The Kaldar were silicon-based life forms from a high-gravity world. They looked like moving crystal formations and communicated through light patterns and vibrations. Welcome, humans, the Kaldar representative pulsed as they landed. Your visit is unexpected, but not unwelcome. Inside a vast crystal chamber, Allison explained Earth's situation. The Kaldar listened without interruption, their crystalline bodies occasionally shifting to create new patterns of light. The Vexari have dominated this sector for too long, the Kaldar leader finally responded, its body glowing deep blue. Their fear of other predator species has held back galactic progress. We have no ships of war to offer, but we can provide shield technology that even Vexari weapons cannot easily penetrate. It was a start. From the Kaldar world, they traveled to meet the Eridani, an ancient species of energy beings who existed as swirling clouds of golden particles. The Eridani had been watching the Vexari human situation with great interest. Young species are often the most adaptable, an Eridani elder told them, its voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. The Vexari fear change. They have been the apex predators for so long they cannot imagine being challenged. We don't want to challenge them, Allison insisted. We just want to exist freely. The Eridani pulsed in what might have been laughter. To the Vexari, your very existence is a challenge. But we will help you. Not with weapons, but with knowledge. The Eridani shared star charts showing hidden routes through Vexari space and information about Vexari battle tactics. They also revealed something surprising. Many younger Vexari were secretly fascinated by humans and opposed their leader's aggressive stance. As they prepared to leave, the Eridani elder approached Allison privately. There is something you should know about your world, it said. Earth was not always isolated. Long ago, many species visited your planet. Some left peacefully. Others did not. Dr. West found references to an ancient encounter between Vexari and Earth, Allison said. Yes, the Eridani confirmed. The Vexari attempted to colonize Earth approximately 3 million years ago. They encountered your planet's megafauna, and more importantly, your evolutionary ancestors. The Vexari were not prepared for Earth's harsh conditions or its aggressive predators. They retreated, but the experience entered their cultural memory as a nightmare. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Alan West worked with a team of geneticists to understand the connection between humans and Vexari. Using samples he had secretly collected during his time on the Vexari station, they made a startling discovery. There, are genetic markers that suggest interaction between proto-humans and Vexari, he explained to Admiral Porter via secure communication. Not just interaction, competition. We evolved on different worlds, but somehow millions of years ago we shared hunting grounds. And there's evidence the Vexari modified their own genetics afterward, possibly to help them better compete with our ancestors. Are you saying humans hunted Vexari? Porter asked, incredulous. Not modern humans, Alan clarified, but our evolutionary cousins, perhaps early hominids. The evidence suggests they were effective enough that the Vexari never forgot. Their fear of us might be literally encoded in their DNA. Across the solar system, Earth prepared for possible conflict. The moon was fortified with defensive installations. Mars became a military outpost. The asteroid belt was lined with early warning systems. Every nation contributed resources and personnel to the united defense effort. But Allison knew it wouldn't be enough. The Vexari fleet would outnumber and outgun them. Their only hope was to somehow convince the Vexari that attacking Earth would be too costly, even for them. As the Horizon 2 approached the edge of the solar system, returning home after weeks of diplomatic missions, they received an urgent message from Earth. Vexari scouts had been detected entering the outer solar system. The main fleet wasn't far behind. We're out of time, Professor Clark said, his face pale as he studied the data. According to these readings, they've brought enough firepower to sterilize half a dozen planets. Allison stared at the tactical display, watching the red dots of Vexari ships slowly moving toward her homeworld. Then something clicked in her mind. A memory from her conversation with Zarkesh during their first meeting. They think we're monsters, she said slowly. They're terrified of us, even though they're the ones with the advanced technology. What are you thinking? Dr. West asked, recognizing the look in her eyes. I'm thinking we need to give them something new to be afraid of, she replied. Not our weapons or our technology, but the thing they truly fear, our unpredictability, our ability to adapt. She turned to the communications officer. Get me Admiral Porter. I have a plan that just might save Earth. As she outlined her idea, the others listened with growing amazement. It was audacious, dangerous, and completely unexpected, just like humanity itself. Instead of bringing the fight to Earth, she explained, we bring it to them, not with weapons, but with psychology. You want to scare the galaxy's apex predators? Professor Clark asked. Allison nodded, a determined smile on her face. They already fear us. Let's show them they're right to. The Vexari battle fleet moved through space in perfect formation. 120 warships strong, it was the largest military force the Vexari had assembled in centuries. Supreme Hunter Zarkesh stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring at the holographic display showing their target, Earth. Status report, he ordered. We are 6 hours from Earth's outer defense perimeter, his second-in-command replied. No sign of significant resistance. Their planetary defense systems are primitive compared to ours. Zarkesh nodded. The decision to eliminate the human threat had not been easy, but after the events at the summit, the traditionalist faction had won the internal power struggle. The humans had proven themselves too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. Supreme Hunter, the sensor officer called out, her scales paling slightly. We're detecting nothing. Explain, Zarkesh demanded. Earth's defense fleet is gone. Their orbital stations show no power signatures. It's as if they've been abandoned. Zarkesh felt the scales on the back of his neck rise. This made no sense. Human behavior patterns suggested they would fight fiercely to defend their homeworld. Where had they gone? Proceed with caution, he ordered. This may be a trap. As the fleet approached Earth's moon, they maintained combat readiness, weapons, charged and shields at maximum. But they encountered no resistance. Scans of the lunar bases showed empty facilities. Earth itself appeared normal. Cities lit up across its night side, but there was no communication, no military response. Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach, an officer suggested. Zarkesh wasn't convinced. Humans don't flee, they fight. He remembered Lieutenant Commander Gray's eyes, the determination in them. Keep scanning for anomalies. Without warning, alarms blared across the command ship. Small objects had appeared throughout the fleet. Formation, seemingly from nowhere. Analysis, Zarkesh demanded. They appear to be human vessels, the sensor officer reported, her voice tight with fear. Very small, 1 or 2 person craft. They're everywhere, sir. Dozens of them. Our sensors didn't detect their approach. On the main screen, a message appeared, broadcasting to every ship in the fleet. We are already among you. Panic spread quickly. Reports flooded in from across the fleet. Environmental systems failing on 3 ships. Communication networks compromised on 5 others. Weapons systems locking up. And most disturbing of all, reports of humans spotted inside secured areas. Of multiple vessels. How is this possible? Zarkesh's second-in-command whispered. Our shields should prevent any boarding. Before Zarkesh could respond, the bridge door slid open. Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray walked in, flanked by Admiral Porter and Sergeant Rodriguez. They wore no spacesuits or breathing apparatus, and carried no visible weapons. Hello, Supreme Hunter, Allison said calmly, as if greeting an old friend. We thought we'd save you the trouble of coming all the way to Earth. The bridge crew reached for their weapons, but Zarkesh held up his hand to stop them. How did you get aboard my ship? He asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Allison smiled. You've been studying us for centuries, but you still don't understand. Humans. We're adaptable. We find ways in. Right now there are humans on 27 of your ships. Small teams just like us. Not enough to take over your fleet, but enough to make a point. Which is? Zarkesh asked. Admiral Porter stepped forward. That if you choose to fight us, it won't be the quick, clean victory you expect. It will be long, bloody, and fought on. Terms you don't understand. Humans specialize in impossible situations. Rodriguez moved closer to Zarkesh, causing the bridge crew to tense. Your ancestors learned this lesson once before, she said. On Earth, millions of years ago, they came to our world thinking they were the apex predators. They left knowing otherwise. Zarkesh's scales darkened with anger. So you've come to threaten us? No, Allison said. We've come to offer an alternative. She produced a small device and placed it on the command console. It projected a hologram showing genetic sequences. This is the evidence Dr. West found, she explained. Proof that your ancestors and ours once shared a world. You call Earth a death world, and you're right. It forged both our species into survivors. We're not so different, Zarkesh. The Supreme Hunter studied the hologram, his expression unreadable. What is this alternative you offer? A new treaty, Allison said. Earth remains classified as a death world if you wish, but humans gain rights to limited expansion and full participation in galactic affairs. In exchange, we share what we know about survival on harsh worlds. Your people have dominated space through technology. We've mastered adaptation. Together, we could be formidable allies instead of enemies. And if I refuse? Zarkesh asked. Allison's voice remained calm, but her eyes hardened. Then you face a protracted conflict with a species evolutionarily optimized to hunt Vexari. We may not have your technology yet, but we have something you lost long ago. The mindset of the underdog. We don't know how to quit. The bridge fell silent. Zarkesh stared at the humans, these soft-skinned creatures who had somehow infiltrated the most secure vessel in his fleet. Who had beaten his champion in combat, who spoke of war without fear. 3 days later, the Vexari fleet withdrew from Earth's solar system. The news spread quickly across Earth. There would be no war. The traditionalist faction had lost power, with moderates seizing control from those who had pushed for conflict. 1 month later, Lieutenant Commander Gray and Admiral Porter attended a treaty-signing ceremony on a neutral space station. Earth remained classified as a death world, but the quarantine was lifted. Humans would be allowed to establish colonies beyond their solar system under certain conditions and participate in galactic affairs. After the ceremony, Zarkesh approached them privately. There is something I must know, he said. How did you actually board our ships? Our shields are impenetrable, Allison smiled. We didn't. Most of your fleet never saw actual humans. We used projections, computer infiltrations, and the power of suggestion. You were so afraid of what humans might do that your crews started seeing humans everywhere. Zarkesh's eyes widened. You bluffed your way out of extinction. We pushed your fear button, Porter said. Just as you've been afraid of us since your ancestors first visited Earth. Zarkesh was silent for a moment. You know what truly terrifies us about humans? He finally said. Not your physical abilities, but your cooperation. Predators should compete, turn on each other when resources are scarce. You protect your weak instead of culling them. You build societies instead of simply taking what you want. You are predators who reject predator nature. That makes us unpredictable, Allison said. And truly dangerous, Zarkesh agreed. But perhaps also worthy of respect. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Dr. Alan West looked out at the stars from the station's observation deck. Humans would always be viewed with caution by most galactic species, feared for the evolutionary crucible that had forged them on their death world. But perhaps that fear could be transformed into something better. We come from a death world, he said to Allison as they watched Earth appear as a bright blue dot in the distance. But we don't have to bring death with us to the stars. Allison nodded. What was it Zarkesh called us? Predators who reject predator nature. I think I like that. Behind them, human and Vexari diplomats continued their discussions, beginning the long process of turning ancient enemies into cautious allies. It wouldn't be easy, but then again, humans specialized in the impossible.